The night air was thick with the scent of burning timber, a low roar rolling across the quiet suburban street. Sirens carved through the darkness as neighbors stood barefoot on wet lawns, their faces lit by the orange pulse of the fire. At the center of it all, Daniel Whitmore knelt on the pavement, shirt torn, soot streaked across his jaw, whispering his wife's name as if it might bring her back. "I tried to get in," he gasped to the first officer who reached him. The flames were everywhere. "Emily's still inside?" His voice cracked, rough from smoke or grief. The officer placed a hand on his shoulder, but kept his eyes fixed on the burning house. Something about the scene felt off. The front door untouched, the windows blown out from inside. As firefighters stormed in with hoses and axes, Daniel's gaze drifted toward the dark line of trees beyond the garden. He blinked hard, chest heaving. A neighbor called out, "Where were you when it started, Dan?" He didn't answer. Minutes stretched into an hour before the fire captain approached, helmet in hand, his expression unreadable. "We found no one," he said flatly. "There's no body." Daniel stared at him, face empty. "That's impossible," he whispered. She was home. She was sleeping, cameras flashed. The fire's glow painted his features in a trembling red, every line of his face caught between guilt and disbelief. The whispers started among the crowd. Someone had seen him outside before the blaze began. As the last embers hissed in the rain, Detective Marla Keene stepped beneath the police tape, her eyes never leaving Daniel. The silence between them carried a question heavier than the smoke. The interview room was dim, its walls painted a gray that swallowed light. A single bulb flickered above the table where Daniel Whitmore sat, hands folded neatly, wrists still marked with ash. Across from him, Detective Marla Keene placed a recorder between them, her voice measured. "Start from the beginning," she said. Daniel exhaled slowly. "We were married 8 years. Emily was everything, kind, patient, brilliant. We didn't fight, not really. We had no secrets." His voice was steady, too steady, the kind of calm rehearsed for an audience. Marla watched his eyes. "No tension recently? No reason she'd leave the house before the fire?" He shook his head, lips tightening. "She was asleep when I last saw her." The way he said it made her pen still. She looked down at the photographs spread on the table. Scenes from their life. A seaside trip, a birthday dinner, the wedding. Each one showed the same smile, the same perfection. But perfection rarely survived behind closed doors. Back at the house, investigators moved through the scorched remains. The photo wall still stood, frames cracked, the glass blistered from heat. One picture in the center had melted just enough to distort Emily's face, stretching her smile into something unrecognizable. Marla returned to the image in her mind as she studied Daniel again. His composure didn't match the man who had watched his life burn to the ground. "Mr. Whitmore," she said quietly, "grief can look a lot of ways, but yours doesn't look like grief." He met her gaze, eyes hollow. "I'm not sure what you want me to feel." Outside the room, a junior officer whispered, "If that's love, it's the coldest I've ever seen." Morning crept over the ruins of the Whitmore house, the air still heavy with the sour tang of smoke. Investigators combed through blackened beams and puddles of ash, their boots sinking into the soft remains of what had been a life. Detective Marla Keene watched silently as the fire chief held up a melted canister. "Accelerant," he said, "poured near the back door. Someone wanted this place to burn fast." Marla's jaw tightened. Inside the wreckage, she spotted a small rectangle of metal and glass fused to the flooring. A phone. The tech team cleaned away the soot, and the lock screen flickered faintly. Daniel Whitmore's number glowed across the report tag. By noon, Daniel sat in the same chair at the station, hands cuffed this time. His voice stayed calm. "I told you I was asleep when it started." "The alarm woke me." Marla slid a printout across the table. "Then perhaps you can explain why a call was made from your phone at 2:13 a.m., 5 minutes before the fire began." He frowned, a twitch crossing his mouth. "Emily must have used it. She borrowed it earlier that night. Maybe she what?" Marla asked. "Lit the match?" His expression collapsed into disbelief. "No, she wouldn't." Marla leaned back, studying him as the fluorescent light flickered overhead. His story had too many clean edges, too many convenient gaps. She opened her notebook, and beneath her tidy handwriting wrote a single word that anchored the growing suspicion in her chest. Liar. Outside, the wind carried the faint scent of petrol from the ruins. A forensic officer approached the doorway with the charred phone sealed in a plastic bag. Marla turned toward him, her pulse steady. Let's find out who made that call. The following dawn was washed in pale gray, the kind of light that made the world look half dead. A gas station attendant called it in first. A black Volvo parked behind the bins since the night of the fire. No movement, no owner. When Detective Marla Keene arrived, her breath fogged in the chill air as she studied the vehicle. The number plate matched Daniel Whitmore's. The boot handle was smeared with soot. Marla nodded to the constable beside her. Open it. The click of the latch was followed by a silence that no one wanted to break. Inside, wrapped tightly in a bedsheet, lay the body of a woman. Her skin was pale, unmarked by burns. Her eyes half open as if she had been mid-sentence. Marla's pulse steadied while every officer around her recoiled. A tag on the sheet read, Whitmore Residence. By the time Daniel arrived at the scene, cameras had already gathered. He stumbled forward, face drained of color. She can't. His knees gave out, hands clutching his hair as a raw cry tore from his throat. Emily, no. The image spread across news outlets before nightfall. The grieving husband on his knees beside flashing lights, the trunk behind him glowing red and blue. The town that had pitied him now whispered a new name, Killer. Marla stood apart, eyes locked on the body. Emily had not been burned. There were faint bruises on her neck, a trace of dried blood behind one ear. No soot beneath her nails, no sign she had ever been inside the house when it burned. She turned toward Daniel, who sat trembling beside the patrol car. If she wasn't caught in the fire, she murmured, then when did she die? The morgue was silent except for the hum of the refrigeration units. Fluorescent lights painted the room in surgical white as Dr. Katrin Rowe, the county medical examiner, adjusted her gloves. On the steel table lay Emily Whitmore, serene in death, her skin pale as frost. Detective Marla Keene stood beside her, notebook ready. Cause of death? Marla asked. Dr. Rowe traced a finger along faint bruising around Emily's throat. No smoke inhalation. No soot in the lungs. She never breathed the fire. Her tone stayed clinical, but the weight of the truth filled the room. These marks suggest she was restrained. Toxicology indicates a sedative, midazolam, strong dosage. She was unconscious before she died. Marla stared at Emily's still hands. She didn't burn. She was placed in the trunk after. Hours later, Daniel sat under the harsh glow of television cameras outside the station, his face a mask of despair. I didn't hurt her, he told reporters. Emily had been distant, unwell. She wasn't herself. His words trembled just enough to sound human. The headlines that evening didn't care. The fire liar, husband of dead woman found in his own car. Inside the lab, Dr. Rowe lifted a magnifier over Emily's fingernails. Under ultraviolet light, a faint smear glowed crimson. There's blood here, she said softly. It's not hers. Marla's eyes narrowed. Type it now. When the results came back, her pen froze above the page. The blood was type B, while Daniel's was type O. Someone else had been there the night Emily died. Marla closed the report and stared through the glass at Daniel being led back to his cell. The sound of cameras echoing down the corridor. Rain hammered against the windows of the incident room as detectives huddled around a flickering monitor. The grainy black and white footage showed Emily Whitmore entering a roadside motel 2 nights before the fire. Her hood was up, her pace quick. Moments later, a man followed her inside, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a dark leather jacket. They disappeared down the corridor toward room 9. Detective Marla Keene leaned closer to the screen. Pause it. Zoom on the man's face. The image blurred into a distorted silhouette, but the outline of his jaw and the curve of his smile were enough to stir unease. Daniel sat in the observation chair, arms crossed, face pale beneath the harsh light. I've never seen him before, he muttered. Marla studied him carefully. You sure? Because that looks like recognition, Mr. Whitmore. His eyes flickered, betraying the truth his mouth refused to speak. He worked with Emily at the design firm. His name's Evan Cross. They were on a project together. Within hours, officers tracked Evan Cross to a rented flat on the outskirts of town. The door was unlocked, the room stripped bare. Only a coffee mug remained on the counter, half full, still warm. Marla stepped inside, her voice low. He knew we were coming. The motel receptionist confirmed that Emily and Evan had checked in together, but only one of them left before sunrise. The other door remained closed until housekeeping found the bedsheets torn and a broken lamp on the floor. Marla stared at the silent footage again, the rain outside tracing lines down the glass. Was it an affair, she whispered, or was she hiding from him? The evidence bag sat unopened on the table between Detective Marla Keene and the digital forensics officer. Inside was a small USB drive, found buried in the lining of Emily Whitmore's purse. No labels, no markings, just a faint smudge of ash along the edge. When they plugged it into the computer, the screen lit with a series of dated audio files. Each file bore a single word: session. The first recording crackled with static. Then Emily's voice filled the room. Soft, tired, haunted. I can't sleep. Someone's been following me. Not Daniel. He's too distant to notice. This is someone else. Someone who knows things he shouldn't. Marla's gaze sharpened. Play the next one. A second file opened. Emily's tone was brittle now. Her breaths uneven. He said the fire would fix everything. He said no one would ever doubt him again. I told him it was wrong. He smiled and said, "You'll see." Daniel, sitting across from them, froze. His reflection flickered on the laptop screen, his eyes wide, his jaw locked. That's Evan. She's talking about Evan Cross. Marla folded her arms. You're certain? I recognize his words. He used to say things like that at work. He thought he could get away with anything. The final file began automatically. Emily's whisper trembled through the speakers. If anything happens to me, it won't be Daniel. He doesn't even see what's coming. The room fell still, the hum of the computer filling the silence. Marla turned toward Daniel, her expression unreadable. Then Evan started the fire to erase her. Or to set you up. Daniel's reflection shuddered across the monitor, half lit by the cold blue glow. The rain had not stopped since the recordings were found, turning the police car park into a mirror of gray puddles. Detective Marla Keene stood beside her desk, eyes locked on the report from Financial Forensics. A single receipt glared from the file, a petrol station purchase time-stamped at 2:05 a.m. the night of the fire. The name on the card was Evan Cross. He filled a 20-liter jerry can, said the analyst, sliding the photograph across the table. Station CCTV caught his car pulling in. He was alone. Marla felt the puzzle shifting again. If Evan had the fuel, he had the fire. But where had he gone since? Across town, the courthouse brimmed with tension. Daniel Whitmore stood before the judge, his suit hanging loose from sleepless nights. Supporters filled one side of the gallery, holding signs claiming his innocence. The other side hissed for justice. The press called it the trial before the trial. When the gavel struck, Daniel was granted bail under strict watch. His eyes met Marla's as he left the courtroom, pleading but empty. Back at headquarters, her phone rang. Detective Keene? A constable's voice crackled through the static. You'll want to come to Ashwell Gorge. We've found a wreck. The ravine was slick with mud, the air thick with mist. Police lights glowed faintly against twisted metal below. Marla climbed down, boots sinking deep until she saw it. Evan Cross's car crumpled against the rocks. A single window shattered inward. An officer lifted a wallet from the mud. The leather crushed, cards inside soaked dark red. Marla's pulse quickened as she stared at the wreckage. If Evan's dead, she said quietly, then who's still moving the pieces? The wreck of Evan Cross's car sat under a temporary canopy, rainwater dripping from the twisted roof. Detective Marla Keene stood beside the forensic technician as he pried open the glove compartment. From the mess of papers and shattered plastic, a single envelope slid free, sealed and clean despite the mud. Her name wasn't on it. The handwriting across the front read only one thing: to Daniel. Marla tore the seal with gloved hands and unfolded the pages inside. The ink was smudged but legible, written in Emily Whitmore's delicate cursive. Daniel, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. You and Evan both scare me in different ways. I can't breathe under the control, and I can't hide from the obsession. You watch what I do. He watches what I think. I'm leaving both of you before one of you breaks. Marla's throat tightened as she turned the page. I know about the fire. He told me it would solve everything. He said no one would blame him if the house burned with me inside. But he doesn't know I've hidden proof of what he planned. If anything happens to me, look in the fire. The paper trembled between her fingers as she read the final line aloud, the words echoing against the hollow shell of the car. Look in the fire. The technician stepped closer, confusion shadowing his face. She hid something before the blaze? Marla folded the letter carefully and slid it into an evidence bag. Something she didn't want either man to find. Outside, wind swept through the ravine, carrying the faint smell of burnt earth. Marla stared into the storm-dark sky, the meaning of Emily's words burning clear. The house was little more than a blackened skeleton when Detective Marla Keene returned. The morning mist clung to the ruins as if refusing to let the truth go. Forensic teams worked in silence, shifting through the soot-caked rubble with surgical care. Then a shout, "We've got something!" Beneath the remains of the living room hearth lay a warped metal cube, its surface blistered and fused. Marla crouched beside it. "A fire-safe box," she murmured. Emily's message said to look in the fire. After hours under a heat lamp and careful prying, the lock finally yielded. Inside were the half-melted remains of a diary and a small flash drive. The diary pages were brittle but legible enough to reveal Emily's handwriting, the same neat curves as the letter in Evan's car. He said if I didn't go with him, he'd make sure I had nothing left. I thought he meant heartbreak. Now I see he meant the house. I'm meeting him tonight. I'll end it. I just hope Daniel forgives me for all of this. Marla inserted the flash drive into a forensic laptop. On screen appeared voice recordings. Evan's voice, low and threatening, promising to finish what he started. The room fell silent. Across the table, Daniel Whitmore covered his face with trembling hands. When Marla finally spoke, her voice softened. "You're free, Daniel. The evidence clears you completely." He nodded, hollow-eyed, and walked out into the fading light. The ruins of his home stretched before him, quiet and cold. He knelt beside the charred frame of the fireplace, his whisper barely audible. "You tried to leave the fire, Emily, and I couldn't save you." Behind him, a single ember flickered once, then died, taking her secret warmth with it.